Okay, so welcome back to the Bruderhof YouTube channel. We are reading the second to last chapter of our book, Following the Call, Living the Sermon on the Mount Together, which features a well-known metaphor. This chapter, building on rock. Matthew 7:24-27. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Now, Doreen and I, in our life together here in community, have had a chance to see this parable enacted in children's meetings, typically with a house built on a mound of sand and a house built upon cinder blocks, and then water is poured upon them. So this metaphor is quite clear in both our minds, wouldn't you say?
I would say so, yeah. That's what immediately came to mind for me as well.
And it is one of the final passages in the Sermon on the Mount, and is a good reminder, a strong reminder that Jesus doesn't expect us to just listen to his words. He expects us to put them into practice. And the fact is that tough times will come in each one of our lives. Personal crises, conflicts, challenges that we cannot foresee. Mm-hmm. And unless we have put Jesus' words into practice, our lives can quickly become a disaster. And that's what the two authors whose writings are featured in this chapter speak to. Jarrett Banks talks about the importance of being in community with other people in order to follow Jesus' teachings. We can't do the teachings of Jesus if we're isolated from other people. We can't give someone our shirt if we don't know someone who needs extra clothing. We can't forgive someone who slaps us if we don't have enough of a relationship with someone to have a confrontation with them. So it starts with, first of all, us having relationships with other people, relationships of that are more than just casual.
Yes. And then to continue on from that, I also thought it was interesting that the next author that was quoted here, Oswald Chambers, talks about how, like you were saying, very quickly our lives can become a mess, as Rich pointed out. But Oswald Chambers takes it a step further and says that, crisis will completely dismantle our character houses instantaneously. And, if we're not prepared on that foundation, it says here, our spiritual castles must be conspicuous, and the test of a building is not its fair beauty, but its foundations. There are beautiful spiritual fabrics raised in the shape of books and of lives full of the finest diction and activities. But when the test comes, down they go. They have not been built on the sayings of Jesus Christ, but built altogether in the air with no foundations under them. And it's kind of like that elusive nature where something looks really good and we cling to it and we try to project that into our character, but that's actually not what matters and what will stand up to trials and temptations and things that will bring us down. So I thought that was a really good thought from this author.
So how do we hear these words and do them? It can seem like a super daunting challenge because the teachings in the Sermon on the Mount are extremely demanding. Mm-hmm. I think what we can do is what we've been doing over the past year with this book is spend some time in Jesus' teachings regularly. One of the authors suggests 5 minutes a day, and then think about, how do I put what I've read into practice? How do I reflect this in my life, in my very specific, circumstances? Whether it be in a church family or a church community like the one we're part of. This is work we can do every day, is to hear the words and do them. And if we approach it in that way, it shouldn't be
Yeah.
so daunting.
Right. And I think that it's very cool because it's a combination of both. Like for me, I know that in discussing what I read with other people, that's really helpful in kind of fully understanding what's being said and then also actually just simply putting it into practice. So it's those two things that excites me about the Sermon on the Mount, because it's not something that you can just read once and set aside. It's definitely something you have to revisit over and over and over again for the rest of your life.
Yes, because it challenges our sort of default
Yeah.
operating mode, as it were. Yeah, as Oswald Chambers writes at the end, build up your character bit by attention to my words, says Jesus. Then when the supreme crisis comes, you will stand like a rock. Crisis does not come always, but when it does come, it is all up in about 2 seconds. There's no possibility of pretense. You are unearthed immediately. So, again, that incremental work of building on rock, which takes more time than building on sand, that's what we have to do. Anything else?
I think that's a great way to close it out here. We're going to miss you guys.
Yes, we will. We only have one final chapter left, and then we'll have to think of something else to talk about.
Yeah.
So if you have any suggestions, you can let us know. Next week, our final chapter is our final authority. So thanks for joining us, and have a lovely week.